Kelechi wanted to disgrace his former wife by inviting her to his grand wedding. He believed she would appear defeated and pitiful in public. Instead, the room learned she commanded wealth and motherhood at once. The woman he once labeled barren was now the mother of 3 sons. That truth stunned everyone. And it was only the beginning. Long before this day began, they say that when a woman is blamed for the drought, no one asks the sky where the rain went. In the town of Amora, this proverb lived and breathed, because long before the truth ever spoke, judgment had already found its voice. Amora was not a small town, but it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's footsteps. News traveled faster than motorcycles, and whispers could turn into verdicts before sunrise. At the center of that town lived a man named Kelechi Okoh, a man whose name commanded respect the moment it was mentioned. Kelechi was young, wealthy, and loud with success. His warehouses lined the highway, his cars changed every year, and his voice filled any room he entered. People said he had risen fast because fortune loved him. Others said he rose fast because he feared nothing and no one. Kelechi believed power was meant to be displayed. He wore his wealth like armor custom suits, gold rings heavy on his fingers, watches that glittered under the sun. When he walked as though the earth owed him space. Men admired him. Women feared him. Elders tolerated him because his donations spoke louder than his manner. But behind the toll gates of his mansion, there was a silence that money could not drown. His wife Ifema carried that silence. Ifema was not loud. She was not the kind of woman who announced her presence before entering a room. She moved softly, spoke gently, and listened more than she talked. Her beauty was quiet, smooth, dark skin, thoughtful eyes, and a smile that appeared only when she felt safe. She married Kelechi before the money grew wild, before the houses multiplied, before his pride hardened into stone. She married him because she believed in the man he once was. For 7 years, Ifeoma waited. Every month, she waited with hope, folded carefully in her chest. Every month, she watched that hope break quietly without sound. She prayed, she fasted, she visited churches where strangers laid hands on her head and spoke promises they could not guarantee. She drank herbs given by women who claimed miracles lived inside bottles. She endured insults wrapped in concern and advice sharpened like knives. Still, no child came. At first, Kelechi pretended patience. He told people they were not rushing God. He laughed it off at gatherings, but behind closed doors, impatience grew teeth. His mother began to ask questions. His friends began to joke. In a town like Amwara, a man without a child was pitied, but a woman without one was accused. The blame settled where it always did. One night, the house felt heavier than usual. The generator hummed outside, but inside the bedroom, the air was thick and restless. Ifeoma sat on the edge of the bed, her fingers locked together, her shoulders tight. She had learned to recognize that silence. It meant a storm was coming. Kelechi entered the room without greeting her. He loosened his tie aggressively and tossed his car keys onto the dresser. The sound echoed louder than it should have. "How long?" he said, his voice already sharp. "Do you expect me to keep pretending?" Ifeoma lifted her eyes slowly. "Pretending what?" "Pretending this is normal," he snapped. 7 years, Ifeoma. 7 full years. Other men are carrying their sons on their shoulders. Me, I am carrying excuses. Her chest tightened. "We have tried," she said carefully. "We can try again. Maybe another hospital. Kelechi laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I am tired of hospitals. I am tired of prayers. I am tired of being mocked." "No one is mocking you," she whispered. He turned sharply. "My mother mocks me every morning. My friends laugh when I leave the room. They ask if I married a woman or a stone." Tears gathered in her eyes. "Please don't speak like that. I am your wife." "You are a disappointment," he replied coldly. The words landed hard. Ifeoma felt something crack inside her, but she did not scream. She did not shout. She had learned that noise only made things worse. "I didn't choose this," she said, her voice shaking. "Do you think I enjoy this pain? I cry every night. I beg God." God Kelechi cut in. If God was listening, this house would not be empty. He paced the room, anger rolling off him like "I will not die without an heir," he continued. "I will not let my name end because of you." Her tears fell freely now. "We took vows," she pleaded. "For better, for worse." His face hardened. "This is worse than I agreed to." Ifeoma stood up slowly, her legs weak. "After everything I sacrificed for you," she said, "you will throw me away?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation. The word felt like a slap. "Tomorrow," he continued, already reaching for his phone, "my lawyer will prepare the papers. By morning, you will be out of this house." Her breath left her body. "Divorce," she whispered. "I need a real woman," he said. "Not someone who fills my house with silence." Ifeoma fell to her knees without realizing it. She held onto his trousers like someone holding on to the last edge of a cliff. "Please," she begged, "give me time. God can still." He pulled away from her touch in disgust. "You are the problem," he said, "and I am done waiting." That night, the walls of the mansion heard everything. The maids heard her sobs. The chandeliers watched her pack a small bag with trembling hands. Memories folded into clothes, love reduced to fabric and tears. When Ifeoma finally stepped out of that house, the night swallowed her quietly. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay. As she walked into the darkness, one thought repeated itself in her mind like a stubborn drumbeat. If the truth ever speaks, it will be louder than all of them. The first drops of rain fell on the city of Marondale that evening, darkening the sky with clouds that seemed heavy with secrets. Lila adjusted her shawl around her shoulders, peering through the misted window of her small apartment. The streets glistened with reflections of street lamps, and the wind whispered in ways that made her shiver. There was a tension in the air, a weight that pressed against her chest like the warning of something unseen, something that had been building for years but was about to break. Lila had never believed in omens, yet tonight felt different. The trembling of her hands as she prepared dinner, the distant howl of a dog, the flicker of the lightning outside, they all seemed like messages she couldn't ignore. 7 years had passed since her marriage to Renard ended in bitter accusations and abandonment. He had called her barren, a woman unworthy of love and life. She had left the mansion with nothing but a small bag of clothes, the echoes of cruel words chasing her down the marble corridors. She sighed, pouring rice into a pot, stirring it absent-mindedly. Life had been quiet but lonely since then. Her best friend, Maris, had been her anchor. Every time the memories of Renard's scorn threatened to drown her, Maris's voice reminded her she was more than the lies whispered by a selfish man. "Lila," she had said countless times, "truth always finds a way. You just have to live long enough to see it." Tonight, the rain seemed to murmur that truth would not wait any longer. Lila felt a stirring of something she hadn't felt in years, a mixture of fear and anticipation. Her mind wandered to the possibility that perhaps Renard had not truly moved on. Perhaps he still believed his own lies. But she pushed the thought aside. She was no longer the frightened girl who believed the world had conspired against her. She was Lila, a woman who had survived, who had endured, who had quietly begun to rebuild her life. The doorbell rang sharply, startling her. It was rare for anyone to visit, especially at this hour. She wiped her hands on her apron and moved to open the door. Outside stood a man in a gray coat, water dripping from his hair, holding a small envelope. His eyes were kind but carried an urgency that made Lila's heart race. "Are you Lila? I have something for you," he said softly, holding out the envelope. She took it cautiously, her fingers brushing his briefly. Inside, the paper was heavy, golden-edged, and embossed with elegant letters, an invitation to a prestigious gala, a formal event she had never imagined herself attending. And yet, beneath the gleaming text, her eyes caught a phrase that froze her. "Lila, the seat of honor is reserved for you. Come see the truth unveiled." Her pulse quickened. The invitation was unsigned, yet she knew instinctively who had sent it. She clutched it tightly, a mixture of anger and curiosity coursing through her. Renard? Of course, it was him. He wanted her to know about his new life, his new accomplishments, his ostentatious displays of wealth and success. It was the same pride, the same arrogance, the same desire to prove he had moved on without her. But Lila's resolve hardened. She would not let fear or resentment control her. She would attend, not to witness his triumph, but to confront the truth on her own terms. She would see what he thought. She could never have peace, dignity, and perhaps even justice. The rain intensified outside, tapping against the windows like the drumming of a distant drum, heralding a storm that mirrored her inner turmoil. She remembered the nights she had spent crying herself to sleep, questioning her worth, believing the lies that had poisoned her soul. Those nights were over. Tonight, she would step into the world as the woman she had become, resilient, aware, and unbroken. Maris arrived shortly after, holding an umbrella and wearing her usual determined expression. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." Lila nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I know, and I'm grateful, but I need to see it for myself. I need to know that my truth matters more than his lies." They drove through the slick streets, the city lights reflecting on the wet asphalt. The gala was held at the Grand Merendale Hotel, a towering structure of glass and marble. Inside, the crowd was dazzling men in tuxedos, women in gowns that shimmered like starlights. Lila felt a momentary pang of anxiety, wondering if she truly belonged. Then she caught sight of a familiar figure near the center of the hall. Renard. He had not changed much. Still tall and imposing, his eyes scanning the crowd with the same arrogance that had once made her small. But tonight, he was not the center of attention. As Lila and Maris approached, a hush fell over part of the room. Whispers spread, curious glances followed, and eyes lingered on her. She was no longer the woman he had called barren, no longer the girl he had dismissed. She carried herself with quiet confidence, the elegance of a woman who had endured storms and emerged stronger. Reynard's gaze locked on her, and for the first time, she saw something unfamiliar in his expression. Hesitation, doubt, and perhaps a flicker of fear. The crowd noticed too. Murmurs grew louder. Lila stepped forward. Mary sat aside and took her reserved seat, a seat that Reynard had clearly meant as a reminder of what he thought she had lost. But she did not feel small. She did not feel diminished. For the first time in years, Lila realized that the power he had tried to wield over her was gone. She was here not as a victim, not as a shadow of her former self, but as the embodiment of resilience. The invitation, the gala, the whisper soul were now part of a stage upon which she could demonstrate the truth. She had survived, she had thrived, and she was whole. As the music played and the light shimmered, a quiet smile formed on Lila's lips. Tonight, the storm outside mirrored the storm she had endured, but unlike the storm of the past, this one would cleanse, not destroy, and deep inside, she felt it, the coming revelation, the unveiling of truth, and the gentle justice that would finally set her free. Her eyes scanned the crowd once more, catching Reynard's gaze. He had expected her to shrink, to crumble, to cry. Instead, she met his eyes with calm certainty, and in that moment, Lila knew everything was about to change. The gala's grand hall shimmered with crystal chandeliers, their light casting dancing reflections on the polished marble floor. Lila's heart still raced, but the familiar tension had shifted into something chaperantis. She sipped her glass of sparkling water, eyes scanning the crowd, when a man in a midnight blue cloak approached her. His face was partly hidden by a delicate, intricate mask, leaving only a pair of piercing, amber eyes visible. "You are Lila." His voice was low, deliberate, carrying a resonance that made her spine tingle. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "And you are a friend of the truth," he said, inclining his head slightly. "I know what has been done to you, and I know what must be revealed." Lila felt a jolt of unease. Was this a trick? A new spectacle orchestrated by Reynard? The man seemed neither threatening nor ornery, exuded an authority that made her question her assumptions. "What do you mean?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "You were wronged?" he continued, glancing briefly at Reynard across the room. "But the world has been blind. The night is long, but even the deepest shadows will fade." Before she could respond, he slipped a small card into her hand. The edges were worn, the writing elegant yet unfamiliar. "Meet me after the gala near the East Pavilion. Answers await, do not hesitate." Lila turned the card over, perplexed. A sense of danger and curiosity intertwined. Who was this stranger, and how did he know the truth? Maris noticed her frown and leaned in. "Another distraction," she whispered. "No," Lila said quietly. "I think this might be what I've been waiting for." "For hours," Segala continued, a swirl of music, laughter, and polished conversation. Yet Lala's attention remained divided. Every glance she threw at Reynard carried an unspoken challenge. He watched her too, his composure intact but with a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Perhaps he sensed that the carefully constructed narrative he had built was cracking, even in subtle ways. Finally, the gala began to wind down. Guests started drifting toward exits, and the room's energy Lila excused herself, citing a desire to get some fresh air. Maris followed silently, sensing instinctively that something important was about to unfold. The East Pavilion was quiet, a stark contrast to the dazzling chaos inside. Rain had tapered off, leaving the grounds glistening under the moonlight. Lila scanned the shadows and spotted the cloaked figure waiting by a marble fountain. His mask reflected the silver light, making his eyes glow unnaturally in the dark. "You came," he said simply. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. "But who are you? Why are you helping me?" He regarded her with a solemn gaze. "Some truths are best revealed by those who walk in the margins, unseen. I am a messenger, a witness to events that others would bury. Your story, your innocence, must be known." Lila swallowed hard. For years, she had carried the burden of false accusations alone, the sting of betrayal ever present, and now this mysterious stranger was offering her a key to justice. "Renard, he must face the truth," she said quietly, almost as if saying it aloud gave it power. The stranger nodded. "Tonight, you will see evidence he never expected you to uncover. Proof that will redeem your name and expose the lies that shattered your life." He extended a hand, and Lila hesitated only a moment before taking it. The moment their hands touched, a strange warmth coursed through her, a reassurance that the path ahead, though uncertain, was right. "You must follow me," he instructed, leading her along shadowed pathways toward an old, ornate library adjacent to the hotel grounds. It was a place Lila had never noticed before, tucked behind ivy-covered walls and wrought iron gates. Its presence felt almost mythical, as though it had been waiting for her all these years. Inside, the library was dimly lit, rows of ancient books lining the walls, their spines worn and yellowed with age. At the center of the room lay a large wooden table, upon which were spread documents, photographs, and letters. Lila's eyes widened as she recognized her own handwriting in some of the papers. Others contained her medical records, and several letters bore Renard's unmistakable signature. These prove I was never barren," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How? They were hidden," the stranger said, "by those who sought to manipulate and humiliate you. But now they are here, and soon the world will see." Her hands shook as she sifted through the documents, a mixture of relief and righteous anger flooding her. Every false claim, every cruel accusation had been meticulously documented by Renard's own correspondence and the records of the people he trusted. Yet now these truths were no longer buried. Maris, who had followed silently, let out a quiet gasp. "Lila, this changes everything." "It does," Lila said, her eyes fixed on a letter from Renard himself. "Everything?" The stranger stepped back, letting her absorb the moment. "You must act carefully," he warned. "Revelations are powerful, but the timing is key. Patience and precision will ensure the justice you seek is complete." Lila nodded, determination hardening within her. She had waited long enough. The lies that had defined her life, that had driven her into isolation, were about to crumble, and she would rise, not with anger alone, but with the quiet dignity of someone whose truth could no longer be denied. Outside, the night had deepened. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, as if nature itself acknowledged the coming turning point. Lila clutched the evidence to her chest. She was no longer the woman Renard had scorned. She was poised to reclaim her life, to reveal the truth that had been waiting patiently for this very moment. The cloaked stranger gave a final nod and stepped back into the shadows. "The rest is yours," he said, vanishing as silently as he had appeared. Lila stood alone in the quiet library, the weight of years lifting from her shoulders. The path to redemption, to justice, had begun. She could feel it, a trembling certainty that tonight would mark the start of something transformative, not just for her, but for all who had believed in the cruelty of falsehoods. And as the first hints of dawn began to seep through the tall windows, Lila knew one truth above all. She was ready to face whatever came next. The night was heavy with an almost tangible stillness, broken only by the soft patter of rain on the library's tall windows. Lila's hands were stained with ink as she continued to pore over the documents, her mind a whirlwind of shock and determination. Outside, a single crow landed on the rooftop, cawing thrice in succession before disappearing into the darkness. Lila shivered an omen, she thought, the kind whispered about in stories of fate and justice. Maris noticed her pause. "Do you believe in signs?" she asked softly, her voice almost drowned by the echoing library walls. I don't know," Lila admitted, "but that crow, it feels like it's warning me, or maybe guiding me." They returned to the scatter evidence. The letters and photographs were damning every false claim made by Renard. Every attempt to discredit her, meticulously documented by his own hand and corroborated by witnesses who had been silenced until now. One letter, particularly, drew her attention. It was from her former maid Celeste, who had been too afraid to speak when the accusations began. "I saw everything, Lila. I knew the truth, but I was too terrified to act. Please forgive me for remaining silent." Lila's chest tightened. The letter was a small yet crucial piece in the intricate puzzle of deceit. She folded it carefully, as though preserving the fragile life of a butterfly in her hands. "She was a witness all along," Lila murmured, "and we never knew." Maris laid a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Then we have allies. We can use this to show Renard for what he truly is." "Yes," Lila agreed, "but we must be careful. He won't give up without a fight." A sudden sound like the shuffle of feet on whetstone made both women turn toward the doorway. Lila's heart thudded in her chest. Had Renard discovered them? But the hallway was empty, dimly lit by the faint glow of lanterns. Only the shadows moved, stretching and twisting across the library floor. "Omens?" Lila whispered again, recalling the crow. "They are warnings. I think something is about to happen." The stranger from the gala, the one who had delivered the first set of evidence, had vanished without a trace. Yet his words lingered. Patience and precision. Lila realized that the path to justice required more than rage or impulsive confrontation. Every step had to be measured, every revelation timed. Hours passed as they sorted documents, photographs, and letters into piles. Each piece of evidence seemed to pulse with significance, like a heartbeat waiting for the right moment to be heard. Lila imagined Renard reading them, imagining the disbelief, the panic that would inevitably follow. It was intoxicating, yet she reminded herself to temper it with caution. Finally, Lila set aside a small stack of letters and photographs that formed the core of their case. "These," she said, "will speak louder than any argument we could make." "They cannot be ignored," Maris nodded. "And Celeste, she must testify," Lila replied firmly. "She holds the truth. She can confirm everything." A knock at the library door made them start. It was soft, hesitant, almost shy. Lila froze. "Who's there?" she called. A familiar voice replied, trembling but resolute. "It's me." Celeste. Lila's heart leapt. "Come in quickly." Celeste entered, her eyes wide with fear but burning with determination. She had aged since the last time Lila had seen her, but the familiar warmth in her gaze reminded Lila of the woman she had once trusted implicitly. I was afraid," Celeste whispered, glancing at the documents on the table. "I didn't know how to speak, but now I can." Lila stepped forward. "You don't need to fear anything. We will ensure your truth is heard. You will not be punished for honesty." Maris offered a reassuring smile. "We're with you every step of the way." Celeste nodded, taking a deep breath. She reached for a stack of papers and began recounting events: the secret meetings, the conversations, the attempts by Renard to manipulate and suppress witnesses. Her voice wavered at first but grew steadier with each sentence, carrying the weight of years of unspoken truth. Lila listened, absorbing every word. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with a clarity that stunned her. Renard's web of deceit, though intricate and carefully woven, could not withstand the testimony of those who had lived the truth. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The storm outside intensified, rain drumming against the windows like the beat of a war drum, heralding the confrontation to come. Lightning split the sky in jagged lines, illuminating the library in flashes of stark white light. Lila's resolve hardened. Tonight, they would prepare. Tomorrow, the world would see. As the storm raged, the three women organized their evidence, rehearsed their statements, and planned their strategy. Each step was deliberate, each moment charged with purpose. Lila felt a strange serenity amid the calm certainty that justice was no longer an abstraction but an inevitable force moving closer. Celeste's testimony, Maris's unwavering support, and the mysterious stranger's guidance had combined to create a framework for redemption. Lila allowed herself a fleeting thought of triumph but quickly reminded herself omens were not guarantees. They were signs, warnings, and sometimes the harbingers of trials yet to come. As the night wore on, a heavy wind rattled the library and windows, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked earth and something more elusive, a promise of change, of reckoning. Lila gazed out at the storm, feeling the pulse of destiny in every flash of lightning, every roll of thunder. "We are ready," she said softly, almost to herself. "Whatever comes next, we will face it. The truth will prevail." Maris and Celeste nodded. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the universe itself had paused to witness the turning of a tide. Outside, the crow's caw echoed once more, a single, resonant note that carried through the storm. Lila shivered, not with fear but with recognition. The omen had been clear all along. A reckoning was coming, and she would meet it unflinchingly. And with that thought, Lila returned to the table, reviewing the documents one last time, preparing for the dawn of truth, a day that would mark the end of lies and the beginning of justice. The dawn broke with a brittle chill, brushing the city's cobblestone streets with a pale light that seemed hesitant, as if even the sun were wary of the events about to unfold. Lila tightened her coat around her shoulders and glanced at Maris and Celeste, who walked beside her with equal determination. They were carrying the weight of weeks of preparation, yet their resolve did not waver. At the corner of a narrow street, a figure emerged from the mist, shrouded in a long, dark cloak that brushed the wet stones. Lila froze, her eyes narrowing. The stranger's face was hidden beneath the hood, yet there was an unmistakable aura of purpose, a quiet authority that made her pulse quicken. "You came," Maris whispered, half in awe. The stranger inclined a head, voice low and precise. "The time has come. He will not suspect, for he believes he is untouchable, but the truth is patient, and it has allies you cannot see." Lila stepped forward. "Who are you? Why help you?" The figure's voice carried a faint accent, sharp and melodic. "Names are not always necessary. Consider me a witness of the shadows, someone who observes and guides. Renaud's web of lies has ensnared many. I simply ensure that the trapped find their path to freedom." Celeste's hands trembled slightly. We have everything ready. All the evidence. The testimonies." "Good," the stranger said, turning to the left. "Then follow me. Timing is crucial. He must see the truth in a way that cannot be denied or hidden." They followed him through twisting alleyways and silent courtyards, the city slowly awakening around them. Merchants opened shutters, children scurried with hurried feet, and the occasional carriage rumbled past. Yet within this ordinary morning, the three women felt the extraordinary. A quiet tension, like the air before a storm breaks. Finally, the stranger halted in front of a grand estate, tall gates wrought with iron twisting into intricate patterns. Lila's stomach tightened. Renaud's resonance where lies had festered, where she had been abandoned and shamed. The stranger looked at them, face still obscured. "He is inside, and he expects nothing," the figure said. "This is your moment. Remember, do not act out of anger. Let evidence and truth do the work." Lila swallowed hard. "I can do that. I will." They entered the estate through the main gate, moving with purpose but careful to make no noise. Celeste clutched the letters she had once hidden. Letters that would finally speak louder than Renaud's. Maris's hand rested lightly on Lila's arm, grounding her, reminding her that she was not alone. Inside, Renaud was already in his study, reviewing documents. His expression was calm, composed and aware that the very foundation of his power was about to crumble. Lila felt a surge of anticipation. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Renaud," she said, her voice steady, "it is time we speak." He looked up, a faint smirk curling his lips. "Ah, Lila. I wondered when you would muster the courage. To what do I owe this intrusion?" "Not intrusion," Lila corrected, "revelation." Before he could respond, Celeste stepped forward, holding the letters and photographs. "I have remained silent for too long," she said, voice unwavering. "I can no longer bear the burden of lies. Everything he claimed about Lila is false. I witnessed the truth, and I speak it now." Renard's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of irritation. "And you expect me to believe this?" Maid's testimony. Lila stepped closer. "Not just hers, here," she said, placing the documents on his desk. "Every letter, every photo, every witness account. You cannot hide behind deception any longer." He picked up a letter and skimmed its contents. His face hardened. "Where? How? Who gave you these?" The mysterious stranger's voice echoed from the doorway, but commanding. "I am one who watches, one who ensures that justice is not silenced. You have underestimated the persistence of truth, Renard. And now it stands before you, undeniable." Renard's eyes darted to the shadowed figure and then back at the evidence. Rage, disbelief, and panic mingled in his expression. He tried to regain composure, to dismiss the evidence as fabrication. But every letter, every photograph, every statement from Celeste and other witnesses formed a lattice he could not penetrate. Lila's voice was firm. "All those you tried to silence now have a voice. Every false accusation, every cruel action, it ends here. You cannot erase what is written, cannot destroy what is witnessed." Renard slammed a hand on the desk, papers scattering across the floor. "You will regret this. You—" "Enough!" the stranger interrupted, stepping fully into the room. Their presence was magnetic, authoritative. "This is not about regret. This is about truth, and the world will see it as such." Celeste's eyes filled with tears, but her stance did not waver. She recounted her experiences again, every lie she had witnessed, every time she had feared speaking up. Her words carried weight because they came from someone who had lived in the shadow of deceit yet survived to tell the story. Maris added details of other corroborated events, every piece of evidence carefully sequenced to dismantle Renard's narrative. With each revelation, his anger transformed into desperation. The grand room seemed smaller, the walls closing in as the truth pressed from every side. Finally, Lila spoke once more. "You sought to define me by your lies. You abandoned me, humiliated me, and attempted to erase my life. But here I stand armed with nothing but truth and justice, and I am not alone." Renard's face, once a mask of confidence, now revealed the panic beneath. He had lost control, and the realization struck him harder than any physical blow ever could. The evidence was incontrovertible, the witnesses unwavering. His empire of lies, built over years, crumbled in a matter of hours. Outside, the first sunlight of the day filtered through the windows, illuminating the room with a soft, golden glow. Lila felt a warmth she had not known in years, a sense of vindication, of release, of redemption. The stranger inclined their head once, a silent acknowledgement of a job well done. Without another word, they turned and disappeared, leaving the women with their victory, the storm of injustice finally quelled. Lila exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. "It's over," she said softly. Maddie smiled. "No, it's just the beginning of truth, of healing, of life reclaimed." Celeste placed a hand on Layla's arm. "We did it together." And for the first time, Lila allowed herself to believe it. That no matter the darkness, no matter the deceit, the light of truth would always find a way to pierce through. The city seemed quieter now, though the air carried a tremor, as if it sensed the shift that had begun inside Renard's estate. Lila, Maris, and Celeste walked back through the cobblestone streets, the morning sun now higher, casting long shadows that hinted at the lingering darkness still to be addressed. Lila's mind replayed the confrontation repeatedly, every detail, every reaction of Renard, and every word from the mysterious stranger weighed heavily upon her. "You felt it, didn't you?" Maris said, breaking the silence. "Like something powerful is about to happen." Lila nodded slowly. "Yes. The truth always has consequences, and I think we've only seen the beginning of them." Celeste adjusted the bundle of letters and documents she carried. "I worry about Renard. He won't just accept defeat quietly. Men like him never do." A soft wind whispered through the alleyways, and Lila felt a shiver, not from cold, but from intuition. Something was stirring, something beyond their understanding, yet tied to the truth they had uncovered. The stranger had promised that justice would reach its mark, but Lila now sensed that justice itself was alive, like a current beneath the city, moving toward an inevitable resolution. Back at her small, modest home, Lila set the documents on the table. She traced her fingers over the edges of the letters, remembering the fear she had once felt at being silenced, abandoned, and falsely accused. That fear now seemed distant, almost foreign, yet its memory sharpened her resolve. She would not forget what had happened, nor allow the past to be dismissed. Maris poured tea into 3 cups, the steam rising and curling like fragile wisps of hope. "We've given Renard no choice. The city will hear, and they will judge. But what if he strikes back?" Lila's gaze hardened. "Then we face it, as we have everything else. But first, we must ensure the ripple spreads further. Justice cannot be local. It must reach everyone affected by his lies." That evening, as twilight settled over the city, a series of letters began arriving at offices, homes, and government chambers. Each letter bore the evidence of Renard's misdeeds, the lies, the falsified claims, the abandonment of those who trusted him. Each letter was carefully written, irrefutable, addressed to those with authority, influence, and conscience. In the shadows of her home, Lila watched as Maris distributed the documents to contacts they had cultivated over the years. Celeste double-checked every address, every seal, every signature. The careful orchestration reminded Lila of the mysterious stranger's warning. Timing was everything. And now she understood. The world must see the truth, not as a single event, but as a cascade, a tide too strong to resist. Days passed, and the effects became visible. Whispers turned into conversations into outrage. Renard's allies faltered, uncertain of their loyalty, and the city's council demanded inquiries. Merchants who had once ignored Lila now approached with questions, apologies, and support. Each acknowledgement of the truth was a small victory. Yet the most significant moment came when a public notice declared that the investigation into Renard's actions would be thorough and impartial. Lila felt a mixture of relief and tension. Relief because justice was finally moving, tension because the city's eyes had turned toward them, and every action now mattered more than ever. She could not afford complacency, not yet. One evening, as the 3 women convened in Lila's living room, Maris remarked, "It's strange. I feel like the city itself is breathing differently. There's a weight lifted, yes, but also a strange anticipation. Celeste nodded, her eyes reflecting candlelight, like the calm before the next storm. Lila considered this. The mysterious stranger had disappeared after Renaud's confrontation, yet their presence lingered in ways she could not explain. Perhaps justice was not merely a human action but a force with its own agency. Perhaps they had become conduits, part of a larger tide moving unseen, guided by forces that transcended human calculation. The next morning, news spread that Renaud had retreated from public life. His name, once synonymous with power, now carried suspicion and doubt. Meetings he had scheduled were cancelled. His influence waned as authorities examined the evidence submitted by Lila, Celeste, and their allies. Even those who had feared him before now whispered about his inevitable downfall. Yet Lila knew better than to celebrate prematurely. People like Renaud often plotted revenge, and the shadows he left behind could still strike unexpectedly. She spent hours reviewing every detail, anticipating possible moves, and ensuring that every ally, every document, every witness remained secure. It was meticulous work, but she embraced it. For the first time, she was not acting out of fear or survival, but out of a sense of purpose or duty to truth itself. Late that evening, as the city's skyline turned gold and violet in the fading light, Lila stepped onto her balcony. She gazed at the streets below, imagining the ripples of truth spreading further and wider. She thought of every person who had suffered because of Renaud's lies, and a quiet determination settled within her. Justice was not simply a personal vindication. It was a shield for those who could not defend themselves. Maris joined her, offering a reassuring smile. "You've changed everything, Lila. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who was silenced." Lila shook her head gently. "I've only opened the door. Others will continue the work. Truth must become a living force, unstoppable, relentless, and as long as we act wisely, it will be." As night descended, a soft, almost imperceptible sound reached Lila's ears. A knock on the door. She glanced down the balcony, then back toward her living room. When she opened the door, she found a small envelope resting on the doorstep bearing no name or seal. Intrigued, she picked it up and unfolded the letter. Inside were 3 words: "Prepare for revelation." Lila's pulse quickened. The stranger's warning echoed in her memory. The ripple of truth had begun, but now she understood it was not yet complete. Something larger awaited. Something that would demand every ounce of courage, every skill honed by fear, every shred of hope they had nurtured. She closed the envelope, her eyes meeting Maris and Celeste's in silent agreement. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, and for the first time, Lila felt the full weight of destiny, heavy, unyielding, yet illuminated by the light of truth. Outside, the city slept unaware of the storm that had begun quietly in its heart. But Lila knew justice, once awakened, could not be stopped, and the ripple had only just begun. The city had grown restless, its pulse quickened by rumors and whispers. Lila, Maris, and Celeste moved cautiously, knowing that every step they took was observed. Every word might echo. The envelope's message, "Prepare for revelation," had unsettled them, yet it also carried an unspoken promise. The truth was about to reach its apex. Late that night, a shadow appeared at Lila's doorstep. She had been waiting, as if some part of her could sense it even before it arrived. A figure, tall and cloaked, emerged from the darkness. The stranger's face remained obscured, and a quiet, deliberate aura surrounded them. Lila's heartbeat quickened, but she felt no immediate threateningly, a compelling sense of inevitability. "I've come," the stranger said, their voice smooth, resonant, and unfamiliar, "to guide you through what lies ahead. The truth you've unearthed is only the beginning. Forces beyond the city are at work. And Renard, he is not the only one who will be tested." Maris stepped forward, hand unconsciously brushing the hilt of her dagger. "Who are you?" she asked, wary yet captivated. The stranger inclined their head. "I am someone who understands the currents of justice better than most. You have sparked a ripple, Lila, but the ocean it flows into is far larger than you realize." Celeste's grip tightened on the bundle of letters. "We've already exposed his lies. What more is there?" The stranger's gaze swept the room. "Exposing lies is only half the task. The other half is survival, strategy, and revelation. Renard is cunning, but the truth has allies. You, Lila, are the key." Lila's mind raced. "We've done everything we can. What else remains?" "Patience," the stranger replied. "And courage. Renard will act soon in ways you cannot anticipate. You must be ready not just to defend yourselves, but to reveal him fully to the eyes of those who once doubted." The three women exchanged glances. Though they did not fully understand the stranger, something in their presence commanded respect. Their calm, measured words cut through fear like a blade through fog. "Tell us what we must do," Lila said finally, her voice steady. The stranger produced a small, intricately carved box. They placed it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside lay documents, photographs, and letters of evidence that extended beyond Renard's misdeeds. Connections, alliances, and schemes that spanned the city and even touched distant powers. "These," the stranger said, "will ensure that every lie Renard told, every injustice he committed, will be visible. But you must act swiftly. His next move will be bold, and the eyes of the city will demand answers." Maris examined the papers, her brow furrowing. This is bigger than we imagined. We've been fighting a single man, but these are networks, manipulations that touch everyone." "Yes," the stranger said, "and networks collapsed when exposed, but only if you have the courage to act. The key is timing, and the key is Lila." Lila held the papers, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had once been abandoned, falsely accused, and silenced. Now she was the arbiter of revelation, the force that could dismantle corruption and restore truth. Celeste asked, "And if Renard fights back?" The stranger smiled faintly. "He will. He always does. But fear is a poor companion for those who carry truth. You have allies both seen and unseen. Trust them. Trust yourselves. And above all, trust the currents of justice." For a moment silence filled the room. The city beyond the window slept, oblivious to the storm gathering in its heart. Lila could feel the tension, the anticipation, as if the very air hummed with unseen energy. She knew that the revelation would not come quietly. It would demand courage, strategy, and unity. Finally, The stranger spoke one last time. "I must go now. My presence is fleeting, but my guidance remains. When the hour comes, you will know what to do. Prepare and act with precision." Reynard's fall is inevitable, but only if you do not falter. With that, the stranger vanished into the night, leaving behind the box, the papers, and a lingering sense of urgency. Lila, Maris, and Celeste stared at the doorway long after it closed, absorbing the magnitude of what had just transpired. Maris broke the silence. This changes everything. We're not just fighting him anymore. We're fighting his entire web of deceit. Celeste nodded. And if we succeed, we free everyone who has been trapped by lies, fear, or manipulation. Lila took a deep breath. Then we must prepare. Every step we take now, every decision, must be precise. Reynard will not wait. The city, the people, the truth, they depend on us. The next days were a whirlwind of planning. The women moved quietly but purposefully, delivering key evidence to trusted allies, preparing for public disclosure, and ensuring that no detail was overlooked. Each document, each photograph, each letter was verified, catalogued, and positioned for maximum impact. One evening, as Lila reviewed a set of papers, a messenger arrived with urgent news. Reynard had summoned his closest supporters to a clandestine meeting in the northern quarter. His intention was clear: he would act to reclaim influence and silence opposition. "This is it," Maris whispered, her hand on the hilt of her dagger. "The moment we've been waiting for." Celeste looked at Lila. "Are we ready?" Lila's eyes gleamed with resolve. "We're ready. And this time, the city will see the full truth. Reynard's deception ends tonight." As the trio prepared to move, a sense of foreboding mixed with determination settled over them. The mysterious stranger's words echoed in Lila's mind. "Trust the currents of justice." She now understood they were not acting alone. Justice, though invisible, flowed alongside them, guiding their steps toward revelation and redemption. Outside, the city lay in shadow, the streets empty, as if holding its breath. Within the walls of the northern quarter, Reynard's men gathered, unaware of the storm approaching. The next encounter would decide not only his fate, but the fate of the truth itself. And Lila knew with unwavering certainty that nothing, not fear, not lies, not power could stop what had already begun. The hour of revelation had arrived. A sudden chill swept the city streets as dawn approached. Unusual for the late spring, the air carried a faint metallic scent, as if warning those sensitive to shifts in fortune. Lila felt it immediately, a tremor of anticipation that tightened her chest and set her senses on high alert. Something significant was about to unfold, and it would demand courage beyond anything she had faced before. The streets were nearly deserted, and yet shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. Celeste and Maris flanked Lila as they approached the northern quarter, their footsteps muffled on the cobblestones. Every corner, every alley seemed poised to reveal both danger and opportunity. "Do you feel that?" Celeste whispered, her eyes scanning the dimly lit. Lila nodded. "Yes. The city itself is restless. It knows what is coming." They reached the entrance to the old council hall, a building that once stood as a symbol of integrity but had long since become a place where whispered schemes flourished. Reynard's presence was evident. The heavy doors were guarded, and the faint glow of lanterns illuminated the figures moving within. Maris adjusted her cloak and muttered, "No turning back now. Every step is either forward or into the abyss." Inside, Renaud was orchestrating his final maneuver. He believed himself untouchable, having spun a web of lies that bound even the influential in silent compliance. Yet the papers delivered by the mysterious stranger had begun to unravel that network. One by one, allies were reconsidering loyalty, shaken by the evidence that contradicted every assertion Renaud had made. Rena's voice carried through the hall, commanding and sharp. "We cannot allow dissent. The city is ours to guide those who question me. They will be dealt with." Outside, Lila and her companions waited for the opportune moment. The first light of dawn struck the top of the council hall, casting long shadows across the square, and with it came a strange, fleeting wind that whispered through the city on omen, just as the stranger had foretold. "This is it," Lila murmured, "the moment of reckoning." With precision, the trio slipped inside through a side entrance previously unnoticed by Renaud's men. The hall smelled of old wood, candle wax, and anticipation. Every step they took echoed a quiet drumbeat heralding the confrontation to come. Renaud did not see them at first. His attention was consumed by his plans, his voice dictating orders and instructions to his closest followers. Lila's pulse quickened, but her resolve held firm. This was not merely a confrontation. It was the culmination of years of false accusations, abandonment, and quiet suffering finally colliding with the truth. Maris whispered, "We need to make the evidence undeniable. The city must witness it. No more shadows, no more whispers." Celeste nodded, retrieving the bundle of letters, photographs, and documents. "This is the hour. We present everything, and there is no retreat." Lila stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Renaud." The room froze. Every head turned. Renaud's expression shifted from arrogance to confusion and then to alarm. "Who dares?" Lila raised the evidence, letting the papers catch the dim light. "The lies end here. The truth you hid, the innocence you wronged, it will no longer be concealed." She began laying out the evidence. Letters proving the false accusations, photographs of manipulated situations, testimonies hidden by Renaud's influence. Every piece dismantled the carefully constructed facade he had built, exposing the depth of his deception. Renaud's face twisted with fury. You dare it?" "Yes," Lila replied firmly. "We dare, and the city shall see the full measure of your actions. Those you silenced, those you wronged, they will be heard." The hall erupted in murmurs as Reynard's followers glanced at each other, uncertainty creeping into their eyes. Trust had always been his weapon, but with the evidence laid bare, that weapon dissolved into doubt and fear. One by one, citizens who had gathered discreetly for the council meeting stepped forward, holding copies of the documents distributed earlier by Lila's allies. The hall, once a bastion of manipulation, became a theater of exposure. Voices horsey in unison affirming the truth, questioning the authority Renaud had long exploited. Renaud attempted to regain control, his voice rising, sharp and threatening. "You will regret this. You will all," but the city would not allow it. The tide had turned. The omens, the strange winds, the subtle tremors in the city, they were no longer whispers. They were the heralds of justice. Lila's eyes locked on Renard. This is your reckoning, your lies, your manipulations, the years of false accusation. All of it ends now. There is no hiding from what you have done. Renard sank into a chair, his hands trembling. Lila's heart, which had carried the weight of injustice for so long, felt the first lightness of resolution. She had been abandoned, slandered, and doubted, but truth had prevailed. Justice, quiet but relentless, had found its way. Celeste whispered, "It's over." Maris nodded, her eyes scanning the room to ensure no final surprises. "For now, but the city will need to heal." Lila looked around at the faces, relieved, vindicated, finally seeing what had been hidden. She felt a profound sense of restoration, not just for herself, but for every person affected by Renard's deceit. The wind outside shifted, carrying away the remnants of the night as if the city itself sighed in relief. The omens had been fulfilled. The reckoning had occurred, and the currents of justice had flowed as the mysterious stranger had promised. Lila stepped outside into the morning light, her heart unburdened for the first time in years. She had faced lies, abandonment, and Farrand emerged not only unbroken but triumphant. The city, once suffocating under deception, now breathed freely, bathed in the clarity of truth. And though the road to full healing would be long, Lila knew one thing with certainty. Justice, when guided by courage and perseverance, could not be denied. The city had changed. Where shadows of deceit once lingered, the light of truth now poured in, bathing cobblestones, towers, and alleyways in a glow that felt almost sacred. Yet, amid the quiet relief, Lila knew that true restoration required more than exposure of lies. It demanded acknowledgement, healing, and guidance. As she walked through the streets, still damp with morning dew, a figure emerged from the mist at the corner of the square. Cloaked and hooded, their presence felt both ordinary and profound, as if the world itself paused for a heartbeat in their presence. Lila's heart recognized something familiar in the stranger's dense, an echo of the one who had first whispered of omens and fate. "You have done what few could," the stranger said, voice calm but compelling. "You faced falsehood, abandonment, and injustice, and you have emerged unbroken. But redemption is not only the clearing of your name, it is the restoration of your spirit." Lila studied the figure, curiosity mingling with a cautious respect. "Who are you?" she asked. "Why do you appear now, after everything has been revealed?" The stranger lowered their hood slightly, revealing eyes that seemed to contain both the wisdom of centuries and the warmth of understanding. "I am one who has guided many when the scales of justice teetered precariously. I come not to claim thanks, but to offer a path forward beyond vindication, toward true fulfillment." Celeste and Maris appeared at Lila's side, sensing the gravity of the encounter. Maris murmured, "The omens. Perhaps they are not just warnings, but invitation." The stranger nodded. "Indeed, the city itself has borne witness, but beyond its streets and its councils, your journey continues. You have been redeemed in the eyes of the people, yet inner redemption, the reconciliation with your own heart, is the final step." Lila felt a stirring deep within her, a mix of relief, anticipation, and the faint tremor of uncertainty that often accompanies change. She had endured years of slander and betrayal, yet the stranger's words hinted that the culmination of justice was not the end of her story, merely a threshold. "Show me the way," she said, her voice steady but reverent. "I am ready to understand what lies beyond this chapter." The stranger gestured toward the central fountain in the square, where morning sunlight danced upon the water, reflecting fractured rays like scattered fragments of the past. "Look, there," the stranger said. "See the reflection, not merely of who you were wronged by, but of who you are now on, who you may yet become." Lila approached the fountain, gazing into the water's shimmering surface. Her own reflection stared back, yet it was tempered with newfound strength, serenity, and the quiet resilience of one who had survived storms both external and internal. She saw her past suffering, but not as a weight to bear, rather as a foundation for wisdom and empathy. "Every injustice leaves its mark," the stranger continued, "but every truth revealed, every lie overturned, is a step toward life. Your vindication has taught the city the value of courage and evidence. Now it is time to teach yourself the value of forgiveness, hope, and trust." Celeste touched Lila's arm gently. "It's more than the city that watches Lila. It's the world, the unseen forces that guide and judge, sometimes in ways we cannot comprehend. This stranger, they are a reminder of that balance." The stranger's gaze shifted, as if seeing into places beyond the visible world. Divine justice, human law, the whispers of conscience day, all converge here. You have been unjustly abandoned, falsely accused, and nearly broken. Yet here you stand. Redemption is not simply freedom from accusation. It is harmony restored between your inner truth and the world that challenged it. A soft wind stirred around the square, carrying petals from the nearby gardens, mingling with the morning's light. Lila felt the air as if it were infused with acknowledgement and blessing. Her years of fear, isolation, and silent suffering seemed to dissolve into the gentle currents, leaving clarity in their place. Mary stepped forward, her voice low but firm. "The city will remember, but it is your own heart that must now choose remembrance over resentment." Lila nodded. "I forgive those who harmed me, not because their deeds are excusable, but because I refuse to be imprisoned by them any longer. My life will no longer be dictated by fear or lies." The stranger inclined their head. "Well spoken. This is the first true act of redemption. The second is to carry this clarity forward, helping others who stumble beneath burdens they did not earn. Your experience, your resilience, and your courage are now tools to illuminate paths for those who wander in darkness." Celeste smiled. "And we will walk beside you as allies and witnesses to the journey ahead." Lila's heart swelled with gratitude. For the first time, she felt a profound connection to the world beyond her personal struggles. She had been abandoned, falsely accused, and nearly consumed by despair. Yet the truth had prevailed, and she had emerged not as a victim, but as a guardian of her own destiny. The stranger took a step back, shadows folding into their cloak once more. "Remember this moment," they said. "Let it guide your choices, your compassion, and your courage. The city will heal, and so too will you. But each dawn demands vigilance. Each reflection requires honesty. Never forget the lessons earned in suffering, nor the power of truth wielded with integrity. With those final words, the figure melted into the morning mist, leaving Lila, Celeste, and Maris standing by the fountain, bathed in golden sunlight. The city, once suffocated by lies and fear, seemed to breathe in unison with them. Birds began their morning chorus, and the distant hum of merchants preparing for the day added life to the streets. Lila took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of redemption settle in her chest. She knew the path ahead would have challenges, but the foundation of truth, justice, and inner harmony had been laid. She had been abandoned, falsely accused, and faced nearly insurmountable trials. Yet she stood strong, guided by resilience, clarity, and newfound wisdom. Turning to her friends, she smiled a smile free from fear or doubt, luminous in its serenity. "Let us return to the city," she said. "There is work to do, lives to mend, and a community to nurture. Our journey does not end here." Maris clasped her hand, and Celeste nodded in agreement. Together, they walked toward the heart of the city, where sunlight bathed the square, reflecting hope and renewal on every surface. Lila carried with her not only the triumph of justice, but the deeper victory of redemption, a victory that would resonate far beyond the reach of past wrongs. The mysterious stranger's presence lingered in her memory not as a figure of power, but as a reminder that guidance, wisdom, and divine justice often appear in subtle forms, arriving exactly when needed, shaping paths toward harmony and truth. And so the city awoke, redeemed not just by exposure of lies, but by the courage of one woman who refused to be broken, whose heart had been tested by fire, and whose spirit now shone with the brilliance of justice fulfilled. The city was alive with anticipation. Word of Lila's vindication and the mysterious guidance she had received spread through the streets like wildfire. No longer was she the woman falsely accused, abandoned, and scorned. She had become a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the strength of truth and the quiet power of patience. In the grand hall of the city council, banners hung in celebration, embroidered with symbols of justice, hope, and unity. Citizens gathered, their faces alight with expectation, murmuring the story of Lila's trials and triumphs. The council chamber, once cold and unyielding, now seemed vibrant with possibility. Lila entered, her steps confident, her head held high. Maris and Celeste walked beside her, steadfast companions through years of turmoil. The council members rose as she approached the central dais, their eyes reflecting respect and awe. "Today," Lila began, her voice resonating through the chamber, "we declare not only the truth of my story, but the truth that must guide every life in this city. Justice is not a privilege of the powerful, nor the mercy of the fortunate. It is the responsibility of all, sustained by courage, vigilance, and integrity." A hush fell over the crowd, broken only by the soft rustle of fabrics and the whisper of anticipation. Lila's words carried weight, not from authority alone, but from experience, the experience of one who had faced betrayal, abandonment, and accusation, yet had emerged not bitter, but enlightened. "I was once accused falsely," she continued, "condemned not by evidence, but by rumor, jealousy, and fear. I was abandoned when support was needed most, left to confront despair alone. Yet through perseverance, the guidance of those who spoke truth, and the steadfastness of my own heart, the lies have been exposed and justice restored." The council members nodded solemnly, recognizing the power of her testimony. Lila raised her hand, calling for silence once more. Let this be more than a story of my vindication. Let it be a declaration for all who suffer in silence, who endure injustice unnoticed. May the light of truth illuminate every dark corner, and may courage never falter when faced with deceit. Mary stepped forward, her voice strong and unwavering. Lila's journey teaches us that redemption is not simply the reversal of wrongs, but the affirmation of hope, compassion, and collective responsibility. Each of us must bear witness to truth, even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or frightening, Celeste added. And let it be known that forgiveness is a strength, not a weakness. Those who wronged us may remain accountable, but we free ourselves by choosing to rise above hatred and bitterness. In that choice lies true power. The chamber erupted in applause, citizens rising from their seats, cheering not only for Lila, but for the principle she embodied. The city itself seemed to exhale, its heartbeat steady and strong after years of tension and uncertainty. Lila looked over the crowd, her eyes meeting faces familiar and unknown. Merchants, farmers, scholars, and artisans all had come to witness this moment. She felt the immense responsibility of leadership settle upon her shoulders, tempered by the clarity of her journey. From this day forward, Lila declared, her voice ringing with conviction, our city shall operate by the principles of fairness, accountability, and compassion. No one shall be condemned without proof, no one abandoned without cause. We are bound together by our shared humanity, and we shall protect it fiercely. The council members bowed in acknowledgement, pledging their allegiance to these principles. Citizens cheered, some moved to tears, inspired not only by the words spoken but by the embodiment of justice standing before them. Outside the hall, sunlight bathed the city, illuminating streets that had once been shrouded in suspicion and fear. Children played freely, merchants prepared their stalls, and birds filled the air with song. The community had been restored, but more importantly, it had been transformed by example, the example of one woman's courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment to truth. I declare, Lila said, her voice steady and luminous, that truth will always prevail. Justice, even when delayed, will be served, and those who suffer unjustly shall find allies, guidance, and hope. This city and all who dwell within it shall honor these principles as sacred. A chorus of voices rose in agreement, echoing through the streets, the alleys, and the towers. The city had embraced its new chapter, one written not only in law and governance, but in courage, integrity, and collective responsibility. As night fell, Lila stood on the balcony of her home, looking out over the city she had saved, not only by revealing truth, but by embodying it. Stars dotted the sky, their light unyielding and constant, a reminder that even in darkness, illumination endures. In that moment, Lila understood fully, redemption is not merely vindication, it is the reconciliation of self with truth, the affirmation of values against adversity, and the nurturing of hope for others. Her journey had been arduous, but its culmination was a triumph not just for her, but for the city, for friends, and for the very principles of justice and integrity. With a heart finally unburdened, Lila whispered a vow to herself, one that would guide her through all the days to come. I will carry this truth, this courage and this compassion so that no one else need endure what I have endured. The darkness cannot prevail where hearts are steadfast and spirits unwavering. And so the city slept peacefully that night, its future secured not only by law, but by the indomitable spirit of one woman who had faced falsehood, abandonment, and despair, and emerged as a beacon of truth, justice, and enduring hope. The story of Lila closed, but its legacy endured, etched in the hearts of all who witnessed the triumph of courage over cruelty, of truth over lies, and of redemption over suffering. "Are you okay, Mom?" one of them whispered, voice barely audible over the storm's howl. Emma didn't immediately answer, her lips curled into a slow, strange smile that held no relief, only something heavier, something deeper. "Yes," she finally said, her voice oddly calm. "I'm more than okay." But behind her, the old Ravenwood Hall loomed like a question no one dared ask. The windows were fractured, the walls stained with years of rain and time. Yet tonight it pulsed with a presence that felt almost alive, breathing in the darkness. Inside, Mara stood alone on the threshold of the foyer, clutching her recorder so tightly her knuckles were white. The air smelled of dust and something sweeter, like a memory long buried, and every instinct screamed for her to run. But she did not run. Instead, she took a step forward, her boots clicking loudly on the warped wooden floor. The chandeliers overhead dangled by rusted chains, swaying ever so slightly, as if moved by a breath no one could see. Silence clung to Ravenwood Hall, not like emptiness, but like a thing that weighed on the chest, pressing every breath into submission. Emma had told her they were here for answers, for closure. But now, closure felt like a trap. "Mara," Emma's voice cracked from behind her, soft but trembling. "Do you feel that?" Mara didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the staircase ahead, the same staircase her grandmother had spoken of in hushed tones, the one said to lead straight into the heart of truth and terror. The walls lining it were scorched with shadows that didn't belong to anything living, shapes that twisted as the candlelight flickered. A sudden whisper curled around her ear. "You shouldn't have come." Mara's breath hitched. She turned, heart racing, only to see nothing but the empty corridor stretching behind her. Emma stood there, flashlight shaking in her hand, eyes wide with fear and something else recognition. "You heard that too?" Emma whispered. "Yes," Mara said, voice barely above a breath, "but we keep going. We have to know." They took another step together this time. Their footsteps echoed like a heartbeat gone wrong, drumming against the silence. And then a door creaked somewhere deep within the hall, slow and deliberate, as if beckoning them forward. Mara swallowed hard. She remembered the ancient words her grandmother had left at her bedside. "Fear feeds the watcher, courage blinds it." But she also remembered the faces of those lost, her aunt, her uncle, her cousin, all swallowed by Ravenwood's hunger, never to return. And now the house wanted to show her why. They reached the library, a cavernous room filled with books that smelled of rot and secrets. Shelves lined the walls, towering impossibly high, like sentinels guarding forbidden knowledge. The fireplace was long dead, ashes cold and gray. Maps and letters littered the floor, as if someone or something had rifled through them in search of a truth that no one wanted found. Emma bent to pick up one of the letters, hand trembling. The ink was faded, but the words still spoke with chilling clarity. The truth lives in darkness. Beware the one who watches behind the glass. Mara's breath caught. The mirror room, she whispered. Emma glanced up, eyes reflecting fear and resolve. No, not yet, but the hall had already begun to choose for them. A distant thrum began a slow, methodical rhythm, rising like a pulse beneath the floorboards. It was too organized to be wind, too alive to be silence. The candle in Mara's hand flickered violently, shadows twisting into shapes that bled into the walls. And then, from the corner of her eye, she saw it, a figure, pale and still, watching her from the edge of the darkest bookshelf. Just a silhouette at first, then a faint shimmer, like heat haze on a cursed plane. "Who's there?" Mara called, voice steadier than she felt. No reply, only that thrum, closer now, echoing like footsteps that shouldn't exist. Emma backed up. "Mara," she breathed, "we need to." But the darkness had already claimed the doorway behind them. The candle died. Blackness swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. Their breaths were the only sound, and then another breath, deeper and colder, exhaled somewhere in the dark. A jana click, the sound of something moving, followed by a whisper, "I see you." Mara's heart felt like it would burst. She fumbled for her recorder, a shard of instinct flaring inside her. If this was to be her final moment, her final story, they would know it was real. She hit record, voice cracking but fierce. "Emma, if you're there, don't panic. I think it's trying to communicate." Emma grabbed her elbow. "Mara? No." Then a flash of light, white, blinding, cut through the darkness. It was the mirror. The mirror at the end of hallway 7, the one everyone said you should never look into after midnight. And there, etched upon its surface, words formed in frost and flame. "You brought the truth here. Now you must see it." Mara stepped forward, trembling. The mirror's surface rippled like water. Her reflection stared back, but twisted, eyes hollow, mouth stretched into a silent scream. Behind it, beyond the glass, something moved, something ancient. Emma screamed. The mirror pulsed colors bending and folding, revealing glimpses of figures. People whose faces Mara knew, faces lost to the hall, their eyes pleading. Trapped in a world between worlds, they stretched their hands toward the glass, silent cries echoing in Mara's mind. "Mara, Emma, Sobat, we need to leave. Now." But Mara couldn't tear her gaze away. A voice, familiar and hollow, slithered from the mirror itself. "You think you came for answers, but you came to be seen." Mara's knees buckled. She felt that voice in her bones. Old, hungry, patient. The recorder slipped from her hand, clattering against the floor. It kept recording, capturing every heartbeat of silence that followed. And then silence broke. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoed behind them, not coming closer, but surrounding. Something unseen, brushing across the floorboards, a whisper at every doorway, a presence that wrapped around their fear and squeezed. "Mara," Emma whispered, voice cracking, "we have to run." But as they turned, the hall stretched impossibly longer. Doors vanished, Walls shifted, and shadows bled into every corner. The thrum grew louder, not footsteps, but a heartbeat. The heartbeat of Ravenwood itself. Mara felt her own heart racing. She wanted to scream, but realized no one would hear it. Not outside. Not ever. Then a door at the far end creaked open, slow, deliberate, like a challenge. "We end this," Mara breathed, stepping forward. Emma hesitated, eyes wide with fear. "What if we shouldn't?" But Mara shook her head. "We came for the truth. This is our only way out." They entered the room. The walls were bare, the floor cold stone, and in the center, the body, not dead, but transformed. A figure shrouded in shadow, fussy obscure. The heartbeat stopped. Time froze. The air vibrated with a presence that seemed older than the walls, older than fear itself. A voice, not whisper, not echo, spoke clear, direct. "You sought the truth, and now you shall carry it." Mara stepped back, breath caught in her throat. Emma grasped her arm, eyes wide with terror and awe. The figure raised its head. Mara recognized the eyes, her grandmother's eyes, but hollow, empty. Not alive, but present. The room seemed to tilt. Mara felt a cold grip around her heart. The figure spoke again. "The living do not belong here, but the truth must be heard." Mara's knees trembled. She wanted to run. She wanted to collapse. But she knew this moment was the purpose of every step she'd taken to get here. She spoke, voice quaking but clear. "We came for answers. We came to understand what happened. What are you trying to tell us?" The figure's mouth opened, not to speak, but to mirror an image. In its shadowed voice, the hall itself seemed to answer. "I am what was forgotten. I am what was feared. I am the memory your world refused to see." Mara felt the air thicken, the presence pressing against her thoughts. A flood of images overwhelmed her. Laughter turned to screams. Joy turned to terror. Shadows to faces. And next, a truth more brutal than fear. She had not been alone in her suffering. The hall Ravenwood fed not on souls, but on secrets, on pain shared and buried. And now that the secrets were uncovered, it wanted release, Emma screamed. Mara saw her own reflection, once terrified, now resolute. She took a breath and spoke. "We will tell the world. We will honor their memory. We will not let you be forgotten." The figure tilted its head, almost a whisper of appreciation. Then, silence. A gust of wind, wild and freeing, swept through the hall, scattering dust and shadows. The mirror cracked. The heartbeat ceased, and Mara and Emma found themselves standing outside, drenched in rain, breath visible in the cold night air. Behind them, Ravenwood Hall loomed quietly, empty. No whispers, no shadows, only a silence that felt like peace. Mara looked at Emma. "We made it," she whispered. Emma swallowed, voice trembling with relief and awe. "Yes," she said, "but the world must know." And with that, Mara raised her recorder. Still running, she pressed stop and walked away. Recall Tokanching's action. If you dare to uncover what hides in the darkest corners of memory and fear, step inside Ravenwood Hall with Mara and Emma. This is not a simple story. This is a journey into the echoes of the forgotten, the whispers of those lost, and the truth that refuses to stay buried. Do you have the courage to face what the house has waited years to reveal? Turn the key, open the door, and see what Ravenwood has been hiding. Your fate awaits, but only if you choose to walk into the dark.